Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we occasionally get to actually use real life examples about things that are actually happening in our world that better illustrates and helps educate us about self-defense laws. So, if you take a look at some of the things we've been able to look at in the past, we've looked at Mr. Hero Delivery Driver guy and all the mistakes he made by deciding to interject himself into somebody else's conflict. Talked about Patrick Lathrop, a gentleman over in Gig Harbor who felt the need to shoot a would-be shoplifter. We talked about my neighbor and friend, Adam, who maybe overreacted a little too much to a catalytic converter theft. And, of course, we've also talked about Mr. Cain Velasquez and the monumental meltdown he had several months ago in California. But there is a new issue, one that is just now developing and I think is going to lead to a very tragic end for somebody. I want to thank one of our loyal viewers, Paul, who actually turned me on to this. So today, we're going to spend a few minutes to talk about what the May Valley Troll is going to teach all of us about Washington's self-defense laws. Okay, so the issue we're talking about again today was tipped off to me by one of our loyal viewers named Paul. So Paul, thank you very much for this idea. And this is a person, and there have been stories on King 5, Cairo 7, Como, My Northwest, and on and on. In the last couple of weeks, there is a homeless individual, very deranged individual, who is apparently throwing rocks at passing cars along Highway 900. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Highway 900 is kind of an old country freeway that runs between Renton and Issaquah in King County, Washington. The stretch of roadway that they're talking about is approximately a 1-mile stretch right in this area here, where in the last couple of weeks, multiple cars have been struck by large objects thrown by this individual. Now, in my conversations with Paul and some other people who are familiar with this situation, the press is calling him the 900 rock thrower or something to that effect. We're going to call him the May Valley Troll because for those of you who are familiar with this stretch of road, it does pass through May Valley. There is rumor that this homeless gentleman lives underneath a bridge, and so therefore the May Valley Troll, it fits just really well. So that's what we're going to be calling this individual. Now, there are two individuals mentioned in multiple news stories. The first one is a gentleman named Danny Engels. Danny Engels was driving home from a doctor's appointment on Highway 900 in his convertible, had his front windshield smashed out right here, as you can see. And you can see this isn't throwing little pebbles at cars. These are very large, heavy objects capable of doing significant damage not only to a car, but to the driver as well. So we're going to keep that in the back of our mind. Now, then there's another individual, Tom Godfrey. He's mentioned in this story right here. Now, Mr. Godfrey was also bombarded by large objects thrown by this gentleman. He stopped his car, got out and confronted him, and the two of them actually got into a physical altercation in the middle of Highway 900. Now, State Patrol claims to be out there looking for this individual, and listen, I got a great deal of respect for State Patrol. They're suffering from similar issues that many departments are suffering from around our state right now, which is underfunding, understaffing, okay? But the neighbors so much have even had to take matters into their own hands, posting signs along the way, warning individuals driving along the roadway here of the rock-throwing troll. Okay, so what Paul wanted to know about is, hey, how does the laws of self-defense apply here? So let's get a baseline rule and let's talk about how do the rules of self-defense apply here. Because candidly, if the State Patrol or law enforcement doesn't get out there and do something about this, this is going to end very, very badly for somebody, including the troll himself, which candidly, probably at this point, this is an individual who in dire need of significant help, whether it's mental health counseling, chemical dependency counseling, a combination of all of it. But this individual clearly does need some help. And we got to understand that motorists here are being significantly endangered. It is not just their property which is being endangered. That clearly is the case. But these objects, if they were to go through an open windshield, if they were to smash all the way through a windshield and strike the driver while they're driving, now we have a situation where the driver can be seriously injured. This is a highway. They could lose control of the car. Any passengers they have could be injured. They could cause a collision with other automobiles. There have been multiple fatal collisions out on Highway 900 over the years, and this certainly increases the odds of a very significant and fatal collision occurring. Okay, so the baseline rules here. Now, under RCW 9A.16.020, we can use any reasonable force to defend ourselves and our property so long as the force we use is necessary, it is reasonable, and it is proportional. Under RCW 9A.16.050, as well as a litany of case law, we can only use lethal force if we ourselves are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Somebody else in our presence is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. A felony is being committed upon our person, or a felony is being committed inside our home. Now, here is the scenario that is likely to occur in the event that law enforcement is not able to solve this problem, which is the rock-throwing troll, the May Valley troll, strikes again, smashes out a windshield. Fortunately, that motorist is not themselves injured, but their car is significantly damaged. They pull over to the side of the road. They now confront this homeless gentleman, and this homeless gentleman, who is clearly arming himself with large rocks, comes after the individual with a large rock or starts throwing large rocks at him. Now, what's the problem? Well, while the individual may have pulled over in defense of their property, and certainly under RCW 9A.16.020, they have the right to use reasonable force, but not lethal force, to defend their property. However, when the craziness is turned towards the driver themselves, now we are no longer worried about the damage to the property. We are worried about the damage to the driver. And certainly being struck in the head with a large object like a rock is likely to cause significant bodily injury. It could even possibly cause death. And so now the driver may be in a position where the use of lethal force is legally justifiable against the May Valley troll. Now, the problem is all of this is occurring in King County, and where the prosecution is likely to have a beef with the driver in the situation is, why did they choose to stop and confront him? Why didn't they keep driving on? Because they will believe as though the driver is under some type of duty to retreat. But let us not forget, under a litany of case law in Washington State, we are under no duty to retreat. So does the driver have to continue to drive on? No, he does not. Now, we talk all the time here about what we have the right to do and doing the right thing. And we have to remember that if we are trying to keep ourselves safe after the car has been struck by a large object, candidly staying in the car and continuing to drive is in fact probably the safest thing for you. But is it legally required for you to immediately flee the area? It is not. Are you allowed to confront the individual who did so? Yes, you are. Are you allowed to use reasonable force to defend your property? Yes, you are. And if the threat of unlawful force is turned towards you or one of the passengers in your car, are you allowed to use force and possibly escalate the use of force in the protection of yourself or those other individuals? Yes, you are. Now, here's another scenario if Washington State Patrol or some other law enforcement agency doesn't solve this, which is that the May Valley troll is going to significantly injure someone. A rock is going to go through a windshield. They're going to lose control of the car. They're going to drive their car off the roadway, strike a tree or something like that. Worse yet, cross into oncoming traffic, strike another vehicle, and now we're going to end up with multiple serious injuries or worse yet, multiple fatalities. Does the act of throwing a large boulder at your moving car standing alone constitute a felony being committed upon your person, thus standing alone giving you reason or justification to use lethal force? You know, that's a close call. It is most definitely reckless endangerment, which is defined as the reckless engagement of conduct which creates a substantial risk of death or serious bodily injury in an act not amounting to a drive-by shooting. It is most definitely that, but reckless endangerment is not a felony. If a prosecutor believed that this constituted felony assault 1, felony assault 2, then perhaps under that situation, the act of throwing the rock alone would provide the legal justification for the use of lethal force. But as a defense attorney, I would not want to really be in a situation where I am having to defend that particular shooting. The bottom line is this, is that because of the problems that persist in the city of Seattle and their absolute unwillingness to deal with the drug, the mental health, and the homeless issues, those problems are beginning to spill out into the outlying communities. The May Valley Troll is merely a symptom of a much larger and systemic problem that we have in the entire Puget Sound region. If law enforcement does not do something and stop this individual, my concern is that something very terrible is going to happen. Listen, you may have more questions about the May Valley Troll or anything else related to your self-defense rights, and if you do, remember, you can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.